Hi, and welcome to Spoonful of Strength. I'm Rachel, and I live with multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, and a few other diagnoses that keep life interesting.
And I'm Tina. I am a fibromyalgia warrior with chronic back issues and a proud stage 4 cancer survivor. We're sisters, and together we're here to support, inspire, and connect. So if you're new here, the spoon theory explains how we navigate life with limited energy or spoons.
And we're thrilled to share that we've been ranked number 30 on FeedSpot's Top 100 Chronic Illness podcast list. So grab a spoon and let's dig into stories, tips, and a whole lot of strength. Welcome to this week's episode of Spoonful of Strength. This episode's going to be a little bit different than our last episodes. Tina is unfortunately out sick, and so we will not have Tina for part of the episode. Occasionally, we will conduct our interviews a different time than we conduct the first part of the episode. So she is going to be on the episode that we recorded with our Spoonie, Sarah. But for the topic episode, I'll be guiding you through that myself. I do ask that you stay with us through this episode as we have pretty significant changes going on with Spoonful of Strength. And I urge you to stay with us through this episode. Tina has sent in an audio clip as she has some news that she wants to share with you today. I'm going to talk with you today about the Spoonie Balancing Act and just the idea of not only balancing everything that we have to do with chronic illness, but balancing other things you may enjoy, things that you have to do, and realizing when to make changes to your life to help your chronic illness. In part 2, we're going to be bringing in Sarah Michelle Boes. And she's going to talk about her advocacy work that is fueled by her daughter, Meadow, with a congenital heart defect. And so you'll be able to hear Tina and I talk with her in just a little bit. So when we talk about the Spoonie Balancing Act, it's the idea about chronic illness just forces us to balance so many things between medical care, dealing with insurance, dealing with daily life and medication and side effects and symptoms and the mental part of it all, relationships, responsibilities. And just dealing with a chronic illness can seem like a full-time job. I know for me, it feels like I can be at the end of the day and feel like, gosh, did I even do anything today? And then I remembered, oh, well, I had that doctor's appointment and oh, I wasn't really feeling real well from this medicine. And it just almost consumes you a little bit. And sometimes we have to give up the things that we love to do simply because we are overextending ourselves. And with chronic illness, I think we all know what that means. We all know that if you overextend yourself, you're going to lead into flares or more fatigue. And it really is a balancing act. So sometimes with so much going on, you have to limit the amount of things that you can add into your chronic illness. And sometimes it's just as simple as reframing your life and letting go of some things to keep yourself healthy. Letting go, I truly believe, is not a failure. It's not, I can't do this because of my chronic illness. I can't keep doing this class that I was doing online, or I can't go out with my friends once a week because of chronic illness. It's not about failure so much as it is self-care and protecting yourself and protecting your health, your energy, your mental well-being, and realizing that your chronic illness and everything that comes with that has to be first on your list. It has to be over everything else. And that may mean canceling plans of things that you would do on a weekly basis. It could be saying no to making brownies for your child's class party. It could be reframing what your birthday looks like. I'm actually recording this on my birthday, and my birthday looks a lot different. I don't eat dinner. I nibble and snack because my stomach is such a mess that it really can't handle a full dinner. And so I haven't eaten a full dinner in probably close to 10 years, maybe 8 years. Um, so my birthday looks a little different. My birthday is usually lunch out and earlier activities. So my energy level is a little bit better. It used to involve going bowling or going out and with the kids and the family and doing fun things like go-karting. Now it's playing games at home and things look a little bit differently. And I'm fine with that. I actually enjoy that because I can really sit and enjoy my birthday and not worry about overextending myself. And so for me, it's been fine. And my family's kind of gotten used to assuming that it's going to be kind of a quiet day. Looking back on letting go, probably 2018, maybe. I had started a Etsy shop making tall, like 5 foot tall welcome signs and wreaths and really enjoyed it. And it had gotten to the point where I was getting a lot of orders and I was overextending myself. And I was glad to have the extra money, but I realized that I'm the type of person that I go, 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 and I have a hard time at limits. And so when I would get an order, I would drop everything. I would run to the store. I would get everything I need. I'd get it done. And then maybe 3 hours later, I'd get another order. I'd go back to the store and I wanted to get things done as quickly as possible because I never knew what was going to be my energy level the next day. And it got to a point where I had to sit with myself and say, yes, I enjoy doing this, but I don't think it's good for my health. I don't think that my body can keep going at this pace. And ultimately, I had to shut that down. And it was a good thing I did for myself because looking back, there's no way that I could have kept up that pace as I wanted to. And we have to acknowledge the feelings that come with letting go of guilt. For me, it was I am not contributing as much financially, letting people down. If you have a commitment to your friends or to the school where your kids go, there's that fear of letting people down. And that's a really difficult one. And also just losing a part of yourself, feeling like, well, I can't do this, right? I can't do this anymore. And the amount of times I've said that over the last couple years of like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I can't go out and get my groceries and walk the aisles anymore. And there's just that feeling of you've lost another part of yourself to this chronic illness. And that's really difficult. But we need to validate those emotions. And we've said it before on this podcast is your productivity has nothing to do with your worth. And so even though those feelings can come up, it doesn't mean you're any less than. In fact, the more I've talked to Spoonies, the more we've interviewed Spoonies, I realize that chronic illness community is some of the strongest people that I know. And I'm going to include myself in that. I'm going to include Tina in that as well. Just managing a chronic illness is a job in itself. And we are warriors. And I'm so proud of everybody dealing with chronic illness because I know how hard it is. And letting go of things to rebalance your life can also be really exciting. It can create space for rest, peace, or even new opportunities. Looking back of when I closed my shop, that was probably 2021. And I was able to, within a couple years, be able to rest, do some things that I enjoyed, and ultimately led me to where I am now. And I wouldn't be here today if I still had that Etsy shop. And so I'm very thankful of the opportunity of letting that go. And I ask you this, and I'd love for you to comment on the podcast or on our Instagram page at SpoonFull of Strength. Send me a DM. But I want to ask you, what is one thing you can release right now to ease your load? What's one thing that you can do to give yourself more moments of breathing room, more moments of rest, more moments to allow you to do something you really love? And what does that sound like for you? We've got a very special guest that we're going to introduce you guys to and let her tell you about her story with chronic illness through her daughter. And then I urge you to stay with the podcast because at the end of the episode, Tina has a special message and we've got some closing comments because this is the last episode of the season. So I've got some things in store going forward. We've had a shortened season for this summer, but stay tuned for some bittersweet news going forward. Are you living with pain? We get it. And we're done pretending it's just a part of life.
That's why we use the Universal Heat Patch from Spicy. Natural, clean heat, no meds, no mess.
It sticks on discreetly, moves with you, and gives you up to 12 hours of relief. No cords, no chemicals, just actual comfort.
Created by people who live with pain, for people who live with pain. Finally.
Grab yours at getspicy.com. That's GETSPICEY.com. And follow Get Spicy for real talk and real tools.
Spicy, because you deserve relief that works.
And thanks to Spicy for giving our listeners 10% off when you use the code SPOONFUL. That's SPOONFUL with 2 L's at getspicy.com.
We are excited to welcome Sarah Michelle Boes. She is a board-certified family nurse practitioner, the founder of Sarah Michelle NP Reviews, and chief nursing officer at Blueprint Test Prep. Inspired by her daughter Meadow's journey with complex heart defects, Sarah has become a strong voice for pediatric cardiac care and advocacy. She also gives back through her work with Conquering CHD and the Children's Heart Foundation, helping to support families and advance care for children with heart conditions. So thank you so much for coming on and welcome to our podcast, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me share a little bit about my own story, but also my daughter Meadow's story too.
Great.
Sure. Yes, we
Great.
are very excited. So, can you start out by introducing yourself to our listeners and telling us a little bit about your journey professionally and personally?
Yeah, I grew up in one of the most rural regions of the entire country in eastern Kentucky. And so I feel like the goal in life, or at least my family's goal for me, was always to get an education and get out. So that's exactly what I did when I decided to go get a nursing degree. And I think when I was in the midst of getting that nursing degree, I knew it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. But at that point, I was kind of like, I'm paying for my own school and I'm halfway through. Like, I just got to finish this thing and then I can figure out what I want to do with it. Because the beautiful part about nursing is there are so many opportunities and there's so much versatility. And so when I finished my nursing degree, what I actually figured out that I wanted to do was teach. And I ended up getting a couple of degrees kind of rapid fire. So by the time I was 25, I had a master's in nursing education, but I also had my postmaster's to be a family nurse practitioner. And I just happened to become a nurse practitioner at one of the worst times in history to go into healthcare because I graduated nurse practitioner school in May of 2020. So
Mm.
COVID was rampant and there was still a lot of uncertainty and a lot of chaos. But what COVID did for me, and I will always be grateful for and so fortunate of, is that for the first time in my life, I had a little bit of breathing room in my schedule. I mean, to get two more college degrees on top of my bachelor's by the time I was 25, I was kind of running myself a little bit ragged. But what I had done in my nursing journey was really figure out how to better manage my mental health. And so when I was preparing to take my nurse practitioner board exam, I was really up against all kinds of anxiety and mental health issues and all the things. And I really had to kind of rebuild that toolkit, which led to me starting my business and teaching other nurse practitioner students how to pass their board exams with less anxiety. And so I tell you all that because in that process, I essentially became an advocate for mental health. I didn't realize that's what I was doing at the time, but that's kind of what it transformed into, which led me into this really beautiful position today where I do so much advocacy work for congenital heart disease and hopefully changing the future of children like my daughter and hopefully my daughter's future as well with her medical. I guess I will say for right now, her plan is more open heart surgeries, but my plan is hopefully less open heart surgeries or none. So.
Tell us a little bit about Meadow. So she was born with severe heart defects. How did you find out about these and what were those first few weeks like after learning about her condition?
It was a whirlwind. I felt like my entire pregnancy something was wrong, but me being me and being a nurse and being a nurse practitioner, everyone chalked it up to anxiety, which is fair. So I had a lot more ultrasounds than normal. I had some bleeding during my pregnancy, but long story short, until I was 34 weeks pregnant, we thought Meadow was healthy and normal. And then I didn't super love the OB that I had, so I switched OBs in my third trimester. And as a result of that, they did an additional anatomy scan that I wouldn't have otherwise had. And then they were like, oh, something looks a little bit off, but they couldn't even articulate what that was at the time. So then I was literally 36 weeks pregnant when we finally got her official diagnosis, which is tetralogy of Fallot. And if you know nothing about hearts, that's totally fine. That's a really fancy way of saying that Meadow was born with four different heart defects, some of which are holes, some of which are reroutes. And so what it meant for us was we pivoted really fast from thinking, oh, I'm having a normal, healthy baby. And I've had all these extra scans to confirm this is a normal, healthy baby, to now I have a baby that's going to have heart surgery in their first week of life. She's going to have an additional heart surgery in her first year of life. And then she's going to go on to have 4 to 5 more open heart surgeries throughout her life. So it was, I mean, it just felt like it completely uprooted my entire experience and really my experience of becoming a first-time parent and my husband's as well was drastically different than we hoped or imagined or wanted.
Mhm. Tell us a little bit about Meadow. How old is she? What's her personality like?
Meadow literally just turned 3 like 2 weeks ago,
Oh,
and Today, most people, they really have no idea. Like, unless you see the scar on her chest, we actually had an experience over the summer where me and a couple moms were like all changing the kids in the bathroom, trying to get ready for the splash pad. And I saw one of the moms like catch a view of Meadow's chest because she has a scar from her neck all the way to her belly button. And I was
Mm.
like, oh yeah, Meadow is a heart warrior. Here's a little bit about her story, but she really didn't even know. And we've been friends with that kid for over a year. So that's really cool that Meadow is doing that well. Um, and I think her personality, like she's so funny. Like, I don't
Mhm.
have any other children to compare her to, but I'm like caught off guard by her humor and her cleverness.
Oh, that's cute.
Wonderful. So tell us, how did your medical background help or complicate the experience as a parent as you were navigating caring for a child with such severe heart defects?
It's beautiful and terrible. It's like both ends of the spectrum, having the knowledge, because what I tell people and what I have to remind myself is I am not a cardiologist. I'm not a specialist in the heart. I am a generalized provider with the hopes of being able to identify the problem, get you to the right person. But that doesn't mean that I don't have the basic knowledge to be able to ask the right questions, advocate, etc. So, as far as helping, definitely helped me advocate better for Meadow, and it definitely also helped with our family too. Like having someone that could kind of bridge that gap of like, okay, here's the complex medical jargon, but here's what that actually means for Meadow, and like how do we meet that in the middle? And then the cons of that was just the extreme anxiety of knowing how sick my daughter was, even if other people really couldn't even conceptualize that from the outside. So, for example, her first surgery was essentially a patch for her to grow bigger and stronger, and then finally have the full correction, have the four defects fixed. And so, in the in between of the patch and her second surgery, her oxygen at home at a baseline ran like between 70 and 75%. And so, like, if she
Mm.
cried, she turned blue. I mean, she just literally didn't have enough oxygen in her body. And so I felt like I got a little bit trapped, especially in that particular time, because it was so high risk of like, how do I show up as Meadow's mom? Because I really just feel like Meadow's nurse practitioner right now. Like I'm just analyzing data all the time and trying to figure out what needs to be reported, what doesn't. Um, but luckily that was such a, in the grand scheme of things, short window of time because she had her second surgery emergently at 4 months old. So we thought she'd be closer to a year, but we didn't get to wait that long, and we had to proceed forward. But
Hmm. Gosh, can't even imagine how scary
it was so
that
scary.
that would be. Oh my goodness. What are some of the biggest emotional challenges that you faced being a mother caring for your child with severe heart defects?
I think in some ways I was incredibly fortunate because what we haven't talked about, because relevant but irrelevant, is I actually, so my education business that I built, I sold in June of 2022. And then we found out Meadow was going to be sick in July. And then I gave birth in August. So I was actually able to really step back from my company because it had just been acquired and let other people handle things. So the logistical side of it was nice in that sense. But it is also hard to like sell your company and your baby and something that has your name and your face on it and walk away for a hot second. Like that's its own
Mhm.
logistical thing to figure out in your brain. But I think for me, emotionally, like just living with the like massive uncertainty all the time. So like when we were in that gap period, like Meadow was hooked up to monitors all the time. We were weighing her every day. We had an app where we submitted all this data about Meadow to her cardiologist, etc. And so like we knew that her next surgery could be any moment, and that was super unsettling, and I did not like that feeling. And now I live that in a reduced sense all the time because Meadow's lingering piece after that big surgery is that she has a fake heart valve. And so every time she grows bigger or she outworks that valve, then she needs another one that needs to be replaced via open heart surgery. Or at least that's what has to be done at the moment. And so every time we go to a cardiology appointment, like it could be time. And so like you can't really like plan your life around that because you're like, is next March going to be the time? Was it going to be this March? Like you really just don't know. And I think especially when she was teeny, I was just like in this like constant state of hypervigilance all the time too, because we did have to be
Mhm.
so on top of her care that when we finally made it out of the hospital after her second surgery, I was diagnosed with OCD, and that was something I've had my entire life. I just didn't have the right verbiage for it, but really like her care in the way that it kind of rewired my brain, not in any way that it was her fault, really like pushed me to seek like, oh, I think there's something more going on here than just like generalized anxiety disorder too.
So, for new parents who've just received a life-altering diagnosis for their child, what would you say to them?
What I tell people first is take some space. I think when we first got the diagnosis, we were like, okay, what can we Google? What can we find? All this stuff. Um, and that actually put me in a worse headspace because 70 to 80% of children with Meadow's more severe type of tetralogy of Fallot also have an additional genetic condition. And so then I had that going through my brain. I'm like, what if she's born with this genetic condition? And what does that mean? And it kind of just sent you on a thought loop and spiral. So when you first give a diagnosis, take some space, take some breathing room, feel your feelings about it. And then as you get more information, because for me, Meadow wasn't born yet. So we really needed her to be here to figure out what exactly we were up against. Then you can like really lean into and become the expert in your child. And that's what I tell new parents the most. You are the expert in your child. You're the one that knows them best. You know their nuances. Like even as a 4-month-old baby in the hospital, like Meadow already had nuances. And so being able to show up as part of her care team and as her advocate, and really being an additional expert in Meadow was incredibly important to her care and her care team. And I really feel like her overall outcomes too in making it out of the hospital.
Mhm. Yeah. And we talked a little bit about the emotional challenges, but what does it look like for you to take care of your mental health as a caregiver to this beautiful 3-year-old?
Mhm. She is beautiful. I think for me, like when you're in the thick of it, like when you're living in the hospital, that's just survival mode. I mean, unless you're going to be
Mhm.
there months and months and months. In Meadow's first year of life, we spent almost 4 months living in the hospital. Like that was just like we have to make it through the day to day, and then we can figure out how we kind of want to clean this up. And so for me today, it's really multifaceted because obviously I have an OCD diagnosis now. I do therapy, I do regular therapy to better manage and work with my brain, and that's important. But I think the other thing that really ties into how I support my own mental health is telling Meadow's story and telling our story and doing this advocacy and activism work because it really helps me like shift how I'm dealing with those emotions in my brain. But I do think too, like whether you're a medical mom, medical dad, whoever, even a medical grandma, like whoever it is in your sphere, like we have to normalize needing help because you're going to need help when you live through an experience as extreme as this.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great
Mhm.
advice. Join Spoonful of Strength on Instagram, a community open to everyone. Whether you have a chronic illness or support someone who does, you are welcome at Spoonful of Strength. You'll get preview clips of the upcoming episodes and insight into my world as a Spoonie. That's Spoonful of Strength, spoonful with 2 L's, on Instagram. What does Meadow's condition look like on a day-to-day basis? Does she have a lot of restrictions, or what are some things you have to watch for?
Sometimes this question makes me giggle because her cardiologist says that Meadow needs to self-limit. So if she pushes herself too far, she needs to be able to limit
Mhm.
herself. But how do you tell a 3-year-old like you need to limit yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but even as much as I laugh, like we've really like normalized in our house like taking a rest and taking a break. And I actually took Meadow to Disney World by myself earlier this year, which was so much fun. And like that was like a big step out for us to be able to do that. And we were in the middle of the day and she was like, I need a break and I need a nap. I was like,
Oh,
okay, we can sit and take
good
a
for
break,
her.
get some water. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was very impressed. But day to day for her, as long as her valve is functioning, she kind of operates like a normal kid. Like We're always watching out, like, are her fingertips turning blue? Are her lips turning blue? Or do we have any extra things going on or picking up? Or is she getting more out of breath? But at current standpoint, with her valve functioning well, she kind of does all the things the normal kids do. Like, she's a part of a gymnastics class. She's played soccer before. Um, we just started a ballet class. Like, she does all the things, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wonderful, wonderful. I love that she's already learning to advocate for herself,
Oh, I
advocate.
love that too. Oh,
Yeah,
it brings my heart
yeah,
so much joy every time she's like, I need a rest.
yeah.
I'm like, okay, me too.
She got
Okay.
that
Yeah.
from you,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're the chief nursing officer at Blueprint Test Prep, just joined the board at Conquering CHD, and you're also leading the Children's Heart Foundation's annual Cincinnati Walk. How I'm tired just reading about all of this. How do you juggle all of that, and how do each of these roles connect you to your journey as a heart mom?
You know, it's a lot to juggle, but I find that things only feel like a lot to juggle if you don't enjoy them. And so all the things that I do in my life, but especially my activism work, are things that I enjoy. And I just feel like so fueled with purpose, especially on the advocacy side, because there have already been changes in just the last 3 years of what Meadow's future could look like and those like her. So, like, for example, she has a pacemaker that literally takes up like half of her stomach because, she had it placed as a baby. It's pretty big. And so, like, we have a little bit of restrictions in the sense of like magnets and phones, and we don't want things to get too close to it or like walking through TSA or whatever. All of that being said, in the last 3 years, that pacemaker is now obsolete. They don't even use it. And the pacemakers that they're putting in are less than the size of a quarter. So, like, we're watching like medicine change around Meadow all the time. And so, like, how could I not be excited to pursue this work? And I think too, like, there have been a lot of really great trials about replacing her heart valve via an alternative procedure called a heart cath, which is literally just like inserting a catheter in the groin and taking it back out versus having to reopen her chest. And so every time I do an event or every time I do a podcast or whatever else that's on my list, like, I'm always thinking and hoping for that future for her.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, your advocacy for pediatric cardiac care is incredible to say the least. So, tell us about the legacy donation to the Norton's Children's Hospital, where the new congenital heart center will be named in your family's honor.
It's really cool. So that might be the thing I'm most proud of in my life because when we got out of the hospital and I was just getting my OCD diagnosis and just kind of like reintegrating into the real world, what me and my husband just kept talking about all the time is we were so lucky. And we were so lucky because we were able to be there together in her hospital room, and so few other parents had that opportunity. And like what a big deal was for us to be able to lean on one another and be able to support one another and have two sets of eyes and honestly two sets of ears to hear the things that everybody is saying because he would pick up on one thing and I would pick up on another, all of that. And so we just kept talking about, okay, like we sold the business and that's incredible. And we had already, like the day we sold the business, we immediately set aside money to donate to charity. Like we knew that was something we wanted to do. And so when we got out, I was like, how can we best support other families going through this that are not as lucky as we are and they're not able to be there day in and day out? And how can we support caregivers or whatever that looks like for each child? Because there was one baby in particular that we think about a lot, that she was one of 6 children. And so they used to call her the unit's baby. Like they would put her in a wagon and they would just cart her around the unit because her parents weren't able to come. They had 5 other kids. So all that being said, we were just really, really, really inspired to find a way to give back to families, but not only families, to really think about the future innovation of what the cardiac program here at home could look like. Because when we got Meadow's diagnosis, like I'm a nurse practitioner, my brain immediately starts working of like, we're gonna have to travel for this. Like she has the most severe type of tetralogy of Fallot. We're gonna have to travel. Like, what is that gonna mean for us? All these things. And to unexpectedly be able to get this care at home and find out they just built a specialized pediatric cardiac ICU and they're one of the top 50 hospitals in the country for cardiac care. Like, we want to support that and really like put any leverage behind that we can to help them further that program. So it was multifaceted, all the things, and super personal to us because Meadow, as long as we live here in Louisville, from now until literally she becomes hopefully an elderly person one day,
Mhm.
will receive all of her care at that same children's hospital because they specialize in her heart. So like even if she needed, I don't know, her appendix taken out at 30 years old, they would still do it at a children's hospital because they're familiar with her heart and how it works, which is really cool.
Mhm. That's great.
How has Meadow's journey shaped your perspective on healthcare, parenting, and just life in general?
Oh, I mean, this is gonna sound dramatic, but bear with me. I feel like it changed my perspective on everything. I think becoming a parent in general changes your perspective. But Meadow actually almost died during her second surgery, and we had a whole host of complications. I mean, to the point that we literally like for a week after her second surgery, they had to leave her chest open. And so like we could stand over her body and watch her heart beat. And like I just don't know like how you live through an experience like that and not feel forever changed. And we live really this weird spectrum all the time of grief and joy. I feel like you can't really have one without the other. And so we have all this grief about the experience, but we also have like such a deep incapacity for joy and gratitude, even in just like the everyday moments with Meadow, which I really, really love. But I think for me, like obviously success for me was like, I'm going to get the degree and I'm going to get the title. Like, I'm going to be chief nursing officer. I'm going to do the thing. And it was just a new definition of success and a reframing of what success looked like for me as a person and a human. And for me, like, success today is like being a mom, top priority. Like, I got to be a great mom to Meadow. And then I've got my advocacy work. And then I've got the other stuff that I have going on. But like, kind of reshaped and shifted a lot of my priorities.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't see how it couldn't, going
Yeah,
through
it just
something like
is.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is. So, what is Meadows' prognosis? You said potentially 4 to 5 more surgeries, but you're hoping that's not the case. But what is the outlook? What is the outlook for her going forward?
This was actually one of the hardest parts of getting her diagnosis because I'm such a data brain. And I was like, oh, okay, like what's the life expectancy? What's this? And what I didn't even know, and I was a nurse practitioner, was this is kind of a pretty new area of medicine in a lot of ways. And what I've learned in my advocacy work is it was just in 2009 that there were more adults living with congenital heart disease than children. And what that statistic actually means is it was the first time these children were living into adulthood, and we were finding the surgeries that were maintaining them into adulthood. And so for Meadow today, like if you had to spin a wheel and pick a heart defect, some people would pick tetralogy Fallot, probably not the most severe type that she has, because they can do these valve replacement surgeries and they can live a long, healthy life as a result of that. The hard part with Meadow and kind of what we talked about earlier too is like we don't know when her valve's going to go bad and it's super subjective. So we have just to like show you both ends of the spectrum. We have a heart friend here at home who got a valve replaced and within a year they needed it replaced again, like something went wrong. Or I just met an incredible woman a few weeks ago and she was telling me about her niece who has the same heart defect as Meadow and they told her, the kind of the path they told us, like, you'll have your big surgery when you're a baby, and then when you're like 5 to 6, you'll have a surgery. When you're a teenager, you'll have a surgery. Young adulthood, you'll have a surgery. But her niece ended up having the surgery when she was a baby, and then didn't need her valve replaced until she was 18. So there's just like this wide spectrum all the time of like it really just depends on the kid and their heart and their valve, which in some ways could be incredible because the more time that we buy in the day to day, the more medicine catches up, which is awesome.
Hmm.
But we just don't know when Meadow's time for a valve will be.
just a small word of encouragement. My stepdaughter was born at 26 weeks and actually had two
Wow.
holes in her heart. They did a patch right away initially on one of them, and the other one needed to be um, surgically closed, as she got older. And again, just similar to Meadow, they were wanting her to be closer to a year, but she stopped gaining weight, so
Mm.
they had to go in and do it sooner. But she is she's going to be 29 in
Oh, wow.
December and has her own little one that he will be turning 3 on Halloween this year.
That's
So
incredible. I love that.
yeah, so there's one of those that are adult congenital heart
Yeah.
patients. So
Yeah,
uh,
we went to an advocacy conference last year in Washington, D.C. So we do like a March on Capitol Hill Day every year in response to a certain act that we're following called the Congenital Hearts Future Act. But long story short, we ended up meeting a 72-year-old with TOF there, which was really, really cool. It's like,
Wow.
oh wow, like I'm like really seeing like the full lifetime. It was phenomenal. It gives me chills every
yeah,
time I think about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. So, can you tell our listeners where they can connect with you and follow your work and your advocacy?
I think the easiest spot is sarahmichelleboes.com, and that's BOES. And on my website, I actually have a whole page dedicated to advocacy and being a heart mom. But I'm also in the midst of writing a memoir right now, which kind of talks about the mental health journey of creating and selling a business, but then unexpectedly becoming a heart mom and what that looks like. So that could be another way that you could connect with me. And then lastly, me and Meadow are all over Instagram all the time. So if you want to follow along at Sarah Michelle NP, that's NP as a nurse practitioner, that's a great place too.
That's wonderful.
Wonderful.
I tell you what, I don't think there's any better advocacy than somebody advocating for their child.
Uh,
I can just tell
it's a
that
different fire.
oh, it is.
Mhm.
It is. And I can see that. But we're really excited to be able to follow Meadow's story and to just see all the love and advocacy work you're doing is nothing short of incredible. So, is there anything that you may want to leave our listeners with? Maybe somebody who is dealing with having a child with a congenital heart defect.
I think the biggest tool that I use day to day, and I wish maybe I'd use more when we were living in the hospital, is just self-compassion. I don't think anyone gives themselves enough compassion. And sometimes I literally just be like, I'm a really great human going through a really hard time right now. And like that's enough to get me through. So if you're like living through a really hard time as a medical parent, just like know deep in your body, deep in your soul, like you're doing the best you can, with the information you have, and that's all you can do.
I think a lot of our listeners with even just chronic illness can attest to that and understand that. So we can't thank you enough for coming on today. We just really love all the work that you're doing in your advocacy and for your daughter Meadow, and we can't wait to follow along with her and appreciate you taking time to spread this awareness of all the wonderful things that you're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you both so much. Thank you. I really appreciate both of
You.
your time.
Oh, so great.
I'm thankful that she took the time to come on to our podcast because she is doing what amazing things she's out there doing with her organization and advocacy.
Yeah. I mean, like I said previous, the love of for a child from a mother is I can't imagine having to go through that with a child and the uncertainties of the future and as far as, when is she going to need the next surgery and all of that. I think my
Mhm.
anxiety would be through the roof and it sounds like she's been able to have some things that have kind of helped with managing all of the struggles and just the stress of being a
Yeah.
caregiver. But she's they're just doing such wonderful things. I mean, to be able to have a congenital heart center named in your family's honor, I mean, that's legacy and for her to create such a wonderful legacy for her family and for Meadow is astounding.
And can you believe that that is a wrap on our season, our last
Yeah, we
Spoonie
did.
for this season.
Yeah, we did a little shorter season. It's the summer. We had vacations and things going on. But yes, this will wrap up season 4 of Spoonful of Strength. Like I said earlier, Tina wasn't able to join me today because she's been sick. But she's left all of our listeners with a message that she wants to share right now.
As season 4 comes to an end, I want to take the opportunity to thank all of our listeners, all of our followers, all of our Spoonies that have joined us on this journey. One thing that we have always talked about is the importance of self-care and prioritizing yourself above all else. And with that being said, at this point in my life, I have decided to take a step away from the Spoonful of Strength podcast as I maneuver through some other life challenges that are taking my attention away from feeling fully present and being able to embrace our vision for the Spoonful of Strength podcast. This was a vision that Rachel had. I was honored when she approached me and asked if I would be willing to co-host with her. And it has been such a fulfilling experience. I have enjoyed every single one of our guests that have been on. I have enjoyed all of our listeners, all of our interactions, all of the words of support. I have no doubt that Rachel has some amazing things planned in the future for Spoonful of Strength. But for now, this is not goodbye. It's just see you later. And I am hopeful to pop in every now and then to be able to still connect with all of you. And in the meantime, have a wonderful time off while we take our break and revamp the future of Spoonful of Strength. And be sure to still like and follow if you haven't already. And keep up to date on when Spoonful of Strength podcast will be coming back. I hope you all continue to save those spoons, advocate for yourself, and remember the importance of taking care of yourself when it's needed. Have a blessed day, and thank you.
Well, first off, I want to thank Tina for sharing that. I know I speak for many of us when I say how grateful we are for the heart, the energy, and the love you've poured into the podcast. Your voice, your honesty, and dedicating this last 14 months to the Spoonie community has meant a lot. And I know that your impact will continue long past today. I always thought Tina and I were a good pair because we have always had very different viewpoints on subjects, and that's what made it such a great show. And us being sister-in-laws, we also knew each other so well. And it's been more than a pleasure having Tina on the other side of the Zoom call with me. Tina's such a generous person, and I know how much she's going to miss being here with us on the podcast. But I know she needs to have some time to take care of herself. She deserves to have this time to rest and focus on her family. So, for our listeners, change can be hard, but it can also open the door for new beginnings. While Tina won't be joining us going forward, Spoonful of Strength will continue. We are going to be renaming the show The Spoonful Show. And I'm really excited for what's coming next. We've got new stories, new segments, and more Spoonie wins and conversations ahead. We will be bringing back Spoonies we've had on the show to talk about some really important topics. And we also will be having some experts coming in to talk about things that are important to us in the chronic illness community. Thank you for being part of this community, for showing up for yourselves, and for supporting each other through the highs, the lows, and the moments in between. This is just the start of the next chapter, and I cannot wait to share it all with you. Stay tuned for the next season of the Spoonful Show. We'll be airing in October, so stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram at Spoonful of Strength, where we'll make the announcement for the new season. And remember, taking care of yourself, setting boundaries, and honoring your limits is always an act of strength. Until next time, take care. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Spoonful of Strength. We hope that you found a little inspiration and maybe even a new perspective to carry with you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit that like button, follow us for more, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And if you're feeling generous, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your support helps us reach more Spoonies just like you.
Until next time, remember to take care of yourself and keep finding strength in your story. Bye for now.
And see you next time on Spoonful of Strength.